All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of Doing Sport Differently. I'm your host, Steve Pallas, and I'm really pleased to be joined this week by, Anthony Wilson on screen, and then hiding socially distanced to the left or right. There he is Denis Day from the Point Lonsdale Tennis Club. Welcome to the live stream, guys.
G'day, Steve. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Steve.
Now, I'm very jealous because obviously I'm, not obviously, but for those that don't know, I'm in Mornington, which is located within the lockdown metropolitan Melbourne area, where you guys are regional, so you got a lot more freedom and a lot more options and bubbles and all those sorts of things. So
certainly very easy for us, mate.
Indeed. Now, I was reading in the preparation for this discussion. I love the story. Tell us, Point Lonsdale Tennis Club. First of all, for those around Australia that don't know, where exactly is Point Lonsdale? And it's got some unique seasonal attributes that many other clubs wouldn't necessarily have to deal with.
Well, it certainly does, Steve. For people who don't know us, we're basically right on the point of the Port Phillip Heads, so we're probably sort of 2 hours away from Melbourne, about 45 minutes away from Geelong, and we're very much a coastal area, so very much a touristy area. So we've got quite a lot of holiday homes in our local area, which basically means we have an explosion of population over the 5 or 6 weeks over summer. And then for the rest of the year, we're really just a smaller sort of town or combined townships of about 4,000 or 5,000 people. So we have our club being basically used constantly over summer full time, and then back in over the non-summer months we go back to just being a normal local club. Quite a lot of different usages.
Yeah, that the club grows, and I think you've taken advantage of that seasonal influx of holidaymakers and got a membership up to 600 in the peak periods of your club.
Well, yeah, we certainly have, yes, yeah, and probably well over 50% of our members would be non-local people, for example.
Yeah.
So, could even be up to 60%. So that makes a big difference to being able to fund things, being able to encourage people and governments to give you grants and all that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the locals, although the locals do lose a little bit of access over the holiday period, it's great to have the tourists fund a lot of the growth of the club. But
yeah, it certainly is.
So tennis for teens. Now we've talked tennis for teens before on this live stream, and it's been a wonderful program by Tennis Victoria. But why did Point Lonsdale Tennis Club? Why did you want to or go down the path of introducing tennis for teens?
Well, I think initially, Steve, we were looking at some sort of program, trying to get younger girls involved more than anything else. And it just so happens that round about the same time we were doing that, the Tennis for Teens concept we became aware of. And when we looked at it, we thought, that'd be the perfect fit for our club, and it's sort of exactly the sort of thing we wanted to do. So once we sort of explored what it was all about, the support that was available there, we thought, this is something we want to put our hand up for. We want to be one of the sort of the pilot clubs to help drive it, and we felt that we had the capacity to do so. So with that, and obviously with Denis as our club coach, he was quite keen to get more and more juniors involved. And we saw it as an opportunity, not just for tennis, but just to get kids involved, come up and try it, get involved with the social aspect. And as it turns out, it turned out perfectly for us from that point of view.
Well, let's start with the Tennis Vic side of it. So when we start talking to clubs about opportunities to increase participation and that sort of thing, they're often really surprised that their peak sporting body has resources, programs, funding even that can help them in their local community. So what sort of support did you get from Tennis Vic through the program?
Well, initially what we got was we got $1,000 grant to start with. And effectively what that was to do is basically go to the kids and say, okay, we've got $1,000 here. What do you want to spend the money on? And so that was great. So what we did, we spoke to them. We talked about the various things. And the main things we spent that grant money on is we got a table tennis table, believe it or not. They were keen. Yeah, we want a table tennis table. And that's probably been one of the best investments the club's ever had because we've got kids playing it when they come along at night. We've got other people using it during all of our other sessions. So that was fantastic. And that, again, it gets them involved, mucking around, sort of hamming around, having fun. We used it to buy a a big sound blaster thing, so we can go out there and do cardio tennis and all that sort of stuff. So we've got music blasting away if we want to. And the other thing we spent the money on was they were quite keen to go up to the Australian Open. So we took a group of about 8 kids up to the Australian Open in January, and they just loved it. For a lot of them, it was their first experience at the Open, and they just thought it was fantastic. So the key thing was we had this upfront grant which the children could work out what they wanted to spend it on. So we didn't influence them at all. We said, okay, there it is. What would you like to do with it? So we had that.
And I think
that support, yeah.
That's an amazing. I mean, it's the research is now showing us that that's such an important thing, is to talk to the people we want to engage with, because what we're finding is that they're coming up with things that we wouldn't normally associate with attracting participation to a tennis club. So, music, a sound blaster, or good stereo. A table tennis table, probably, and Denis, if you kind of pull in the club coach perspective they're probably things that you would have thought of from that top down approach when you're talking about attracting kids to the club.
That is exactly right. So so it's all good thing. It gives them something to talk about to their friends too. Yeah, come along and we can listen to some music, we can do a bit of exercise, we can have a hit of table tennis and basically it's amazing because every night it starts with them hitting the table tennis and it always finishes them on the table tennis table. So yeah, great, fantastic.
But a lot of the parents when they're hitting table tennis, a lot of the parents when they arrive to pick up their kids, we've got to try and kick the whole lot out because the parents and the kids all get involved playing table tennis, and we've got to get rid of them.
That's right.
and that pulls in the whole clubs are just more than the sport, isn't it? It pulls in the social connection, the friendship, and the enjoyment side of the non-sporting activities of the club.
Yep, that's exactly right. Exactly right.
And
sorry, so just the other thing, the other support we also did for the first 2 terms that we did this, we also got provided $45 a session for administration. So that was for 2 terms, and since then now we just funded ourselves. I mean, there's really not much that we need to do really now, so it's really just us volunteering our time more than anything else from that point of view. So we also get that support. So that was very handy for the first month or first term or 2, but then after that, the program can basically run itself.
And just going back to the music side, because almost
yes,
in tennis it's counterintuitive, isn't it? Because I guess some of the words that are synonymous with tennis are quiet, please.
That's right.
It's almost counterintuitive. Same as in lawn bowls, the barefoot bowls love music, love atmosphere.
Yep.
Is that what we found, or you found with the kids as well?
Well, that's what we found, and what we've also strived. When people have come along, we said it's not actually a tennis night; it's a social night focused with tennis in the background, basically. So tennis is sort of the link, but we stress at from the very beginning, it's very social, and that's where the music comes into it all. And particularly, our kids are probably the year 7, 8, 9 level. The boys particularly are very boisterous. So there's a lot of carrying on and all that sort of stuff going on anyway. So you're not going to have it quiet to start with. So the music to some degree almost is a distraction from them as well, so it's all good fun.
And that year 7, 8, 9, that's typically where we're seeing drop-offs of kids out of sport, particularly with the girls.
Yes,
and so it's interesting that the program's targeted about that. So when you went to the kids the first time, how did they respond? Because they probably haven't been asked their opinion too often on how do you want things to operate that affect you.
Well, basically, it did take them a few weeks to get used to the concept. And even when we said we've got this money to spend, it was okay, go away and think about it. And, we gave some potential suggestions and but really asked them to go and think about it. And you're right, that they did. I'll give them their due. They spoke about it amongst themselves. They thought, okay, what do we want and don't want? But I think they liked the concept that they could come up with the idea of what it was. You could almost see when we first said to them, you tell us what you want to spend the money on. You could see straight away it was, this is great. Oh, gee, we'll have to think about this. And they really embraced it, which was a fantastic thing.
Was there a little bit of disbelief that you were kind of saying, hey, you got this money and you can spend it on whatever you want?
Disbelief might be too strong a word, but certainly there was surprise, put it like that. Yeah, there was certainly a pleasant surprise that they were able to do that too, from that point of view.
So what about the tennis side of it? So then take us through what are the tennis activities, Who runs them? Who's deciding? What's the structure of the evening or the day when they come?
Initially, we would, we being Denis and I, would probably think of some of the activities to do. So we did cardio tennis. We had got them up there with a ball machine, doing some, different games. So we're trying to make it around a gamey taming. So it's not actually coaching or formal play. So we'd like to focus it around games. So we did cardio tennis activities. We did, as I said, the ball machine. We then tried to organise some theme nights. So we sort of had a football tennis where effectively we had people having to either, you'd hit the ball and you got 6 points, or you did another activity and you got 1 point. We had a Mexican night where we tried to sort of organise games around, panadas and all that sort of stuff, hitting the ball, trying to break the panada and all that. So we do those sort of things, and that got them very much involved. But what we've now found over the period of 12 to 15 months now, they basically run it. So the week before, it's okay, what do you want to do next week? And we're finding more and more now they're just very happy to go out there, split up into groups, and just belt tennis balls at each other effectively. So, because again, it's the social interaction, just getting there, mucking around with each other. But we find if you give them a little bit of structure, come up with some themes. Denis, with his coaching, has got quite a number of tennis games that you can play. So we get them involved with that sort of thing. So, I think initially you probably need to structure it a little bit more and give them, okay, we're going to do this next week. But then over time, it's okay, what do you want to do next week? And you find they've got the key things that they're happy doing. So, from that, that's I think the natural evolution of what the program should be.
And how have they responded to that responsibility or handled that responsibility? Have they embraced it, or has it been quite challenging?
Well, I think the thing is we have probably got a couple of natural leaders in the group, and that's been very good. So they're often they'll be the ones to put their hand up and say, hey, why don't we do this? And then the other kids will say, oh, yeah, that's a good idea, or no, I don't like doing that, we'll something else. So we find that's pretty good. The natural leaders tend to sort of step forward, and they help then drive the process themselves with each other and the interaction and all that sort of stuff.
So again, taking the pressure and the responsibility off yourself and Denis. So I can imagine as facilitators, that makes it a very enjoyable experience.
Oh, it's a great night. I love it. I mean, the thing I found, the things in my mind is just in before we had to stop it all, before COVID came in, just some of the kids that get up there and they go out there and basically, okay, what do you want to do tonight? And before you even say that, they're already out on the court doing what they want to do. And so all I'm basically doing is going around hitting balls with them, watching what's going on, and, trash talking them, they stop trash talking you back, and it's fantastic, Yeah, so it's good. They really do embrace it, from that point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. And welcome to a couple of our regular visitors. So Karina Clark. So Karina, from my memory, you're from the Office Tennis Club, and Gary Leach from Knox Tennis Club. Welcome to you. Welcome to everybody that's watching the live stream. Just picking up on Gary's point here that, and again, it's about getting people into the club and creating a safe, enjoyable environment, and then introducing the sport. And Gary says we purchased bocce, croquet, large dice, giant pickup sticks, beach tennis equipment, etc., to play other non-tennis games. Yes. So that's consistent with your social fun,
exactly,
learning the skills.
Absolutely. So
the recruitment. Let's go right back to the start. So you had how many kids did you have in this, I guess, consultation group? Eight or so.
About 8, 7 or 8. So we had them in the initial group, and we basically got them through word of mouth through the club, letting people know that we were doing this, and also in social media, like with our Facebook pages and that. So we picked up a few then, and we advertised a little bit in some local press. So that's where we got the initial interest from.
So they weren't even kids that were participating in tennis per se at that stage.
Probably 50, probably half and half, probably about half and half. So, a couple that came up, one of them was saw the ad, was keen to sort of, was playing sport but hadn't played tennis, was keen to sort of see what tennis was like, came along. Another young girl, I think her parents saw it there and said, you need to get out. Why don't you go up there and see what this is all about? And she was very, very shy initially, but over the period, her tennis probably hasn't improved that much, but her social interaction and all that has. So, we've had that sort of 50-50 mix.
Well, and so people that are new to tennis, again, starting with non-tennis, as you said, you start with the table tennis before and after, for instance, which did you see people take a little bit of time to really embrace the tennis? They were kind of coming, they were watching, they were kind of just in the background, and then as their confidence grew, they participated more regularly.
That would be right. Yeah, that would be right. And I think, again, but when you have early on, when we're the ones actually sort of organising the activities, then they sort of have to become involved. They can't really stand back. So if you're doing like cardio tennis or some of the other games, that's one way to get them involved, where they're not feeling, I suppose, threatened because they can't hold the tennis racket that well. And Denis, I must be being the good coach he is. He's very good with the younger people in getting them to, have a go, do this, do that. Don't worry about it. If you miss the shot, go back to the end of the line, come back again, and all that sort of thing. So I think that's where early on, if you do have some organised activities early on, that gets those people, prevents them from being able to stand back and sort of, so you're not pushing them, but it's just natural that they're part of the group, and because it's in a game, fun situation, they're not feeling as pressurised, say, as they might be if it was a formal coaching session or something along those lines.
Or it was in a match type scenario.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so Karina says, did you use social media to attract the participants, and how has the program grown over that year and a half? Ignoring COVID at the moment.
We did use social media early. And what we've found is the growth. We've probably doubled our numbers over the period. So we've got a core group coming up now of around about 14 to 16. But what we found, it was actually word of mouth. So social media got initial interest, but then we found the growth actually came from word of mouth from the active participants, going back then talking to their friends or other people around the club, because often, for example, on the night we do it Monday night, we then have a adult night tennis follows that, and a lot of them would come up and see it, and they've got kids saying, oh yeah, maybe I should send my kid up to have a look and have a taste and all that sort of stuff. So it was very much the word of social media early, but very much word of mouth from the participants who were involved. That's where the growth really then comes from, because they just go back and talk to their friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the benefit of putting the induction program, linking it to an established club program, I think can't be underestimated, because it all of a sudden kind of creates that pathway. Hey, if I keep going, I could look like this. The parents are saying, hey, and being the father of 3 daughters, I get that when they say, right, get out of the house.
Yep, that's right, yep.
The father of 3 daughters.
And what we've found too is, even 3 kids that have come in initially, they've now come into competition tennis. So, there's 3 that came along, really were just really coming along just for the social side, but they've now become involved in comp tennis as well. So it is a pathway into junior pennant if that's what they want to do as well.
If that's what they want to do. So 3 out of 15 is not a bad.
Well, that's not bad. And when you probably think about probably half that number already playing, the comp as well. So it's quite, from that point of view, it's a good hit rate for people that weren't participants in comps beforehand.
Yeah, fantastic. But that's just I think the important thing there was natural progression at the pace they want to go. I just come back to Karina's comment about social media.
Yeah.
During the session itself, are the kids using their phones? Are they posting? Are they communicating? Or is it?
Not really, no. I mean, basically when they're there, they're participating in our activities. I mean, when they're there at the start, if they're waiting for other people, yep, they're in their phones. But once we're out there, the phones are basically in the club rooms, and we're just out doing our thing. So they really aren't interested in looking at their phones or posting on social media and all that. They might be afterwards, but certainly not while we're actually engaging during the sessions, which is good.
Parents, it is possible to separate your children from their phones.
So they can't be doing 2 things at once.
Yeah.
So did the kids, and picking up Gary's point here, word of mouth helps us school friends join their mates. Did the kids effectively become the ambassadors and the recruiters of the program?
Yes. In a word, yes. That's exactly what happened. So they went out there, they were speaking to their friends and, going to school, speaking to their schoolmates, and And the other thing too is we've probably got our participants probably go to 3 or 4 different schools in our area. There's some of the public schools and the private schools. So it's not like they're all going to the same school. So the feelers go out a bit more from that point of view as well.
Tennis Victoria also gave us a lot of little sort of incentive things. Bring a kid, another participant, and you get one of these. They had little power adapters for mobile phones and other little pieces. So there was a little bit of bribery going on behind the scenes as well.
Yeah. Yes, we talked about the support before. We were talking about the support that we got. Yes, so yeah, so they're all quite keen to get the what is it, the little battery things for their phone.
Yeah,
you keep forgetting the name of them. All those sort of things, little pedometer type things, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we handed those out, but in the end, I just ended up giving them away to all the kids anyway because we had that much stuff there to give away. It was fantastic.
So you now mentioned you got 15, and it'll no doubt continue to grow as it gets traction, momentum, and consistency. What cost? And you've said now sustainable program. So what cost are you putting into the program now, or charging the participants?
We charge the participants $5 a night, and that goes mainly towards buying food for them. So at the end of the sessions, again, part of the social thing, we bring them in and we'll have pizzas or party pies or cakes or something like that for them. So one night we had a Mexican night, so we had a nacho night and taco night and all that sort of stuff. So that's it. So in terms of the club cost, there is basically minimal cost to us now because we've got all the equipment we need. Because we've got Denis up there, we've got plenty of tennis balls and rackets if we need spare rackets. So, there's a minimal cost. So the cost for the kids is basically to fund their own food.
Yeah. Gary asked the question, how did you find using the Mind Body app? And I'll ask the question, what is the Mind Body app to register participants? Did you find that a positive or a negative?
Okay, well, the Mind Body app is the app that effectively you go in there to register who all your participants are each time, so you can track. I mean, people can book a place if they want to, but then you basically put them in so you can then track who's been coming along. I haven't found any problems with it, to be quite honest. I will note that very few participants, or actually no participants, actually register through the Mind Body app. They just rock up on the night, and then I just enter their details and put them into the system each night. So I haven't had any trouble using the app, but I might say that it probably hasn't really attracted anybody to come along. It's mainly been the word of mouth and other social media that's got people coming.
That's an interesting learning, isn't it? And I think it's a consistent with learning that we hear across the program is that don't expect social media to do all the work for you. It's people, your ambassadors, your current participants, their friends, their family, going out, spreading the word. So consciously creating that behavior is a really important part of successful programs as well.
That's right. And I suppose one other thing, Steve, I did forget to mention it before, was we did get a large banner, Tennis Platoons banner that we had on the fence at the club. And it's amazing that elicited a lot of comment from people. Oh, what's Tennis Platoons? So that was one way then of getting you to speak to, and it was mainly parents. Oh, what's the Tennis Platoons program? You'd speak to them about what it was about, and that then generated conversations amongst themselves. So yeah, I should have mentioned that too. We did have the big banner there, and that did get quite a bit of interest, particularly early on, from people just wanting to know what the program was, and then allowed other people then to sort of spread the word from that point of view.
The holiday makers knocked it off, though, Steve.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So everyone blames the city people, don't they? We just so for those clubs that are thinking of going down this path, what would be your advice to clubs starting to go down? And it's not just tennis we're talking about; it's about youth-based programs.
Well, I think the key thing that we would find is, one, make sure you're basing it and stressing it. It's a social activity based on whatever your activity is, be it football, cricket, tennis, whatever. So really stress the social activity component of it. And I suppose, and the other thing too is then making sure that the kids get the opportunity to drive it as much as possible. Now, if that means, from our point of view, to some degree, you're manipulating them in that direction, but getting them into that as quickly as possible. So the key thing is stress the social component of it, and stress that it is their night. It's not our night. It's not a structured night. It's their night to work out what they want to do.
And Steve, the other thing too, they need to contact Tamitha and her team in at Tennis Victoria, because they provide a lot of ideas and access to the activities that are online for tennis for teens and all that background support stuff. And you need to have that help, I think, to really get momentum going and get some rubbish, or not rubbish, but giveaways and all this sort of stuff. That other advertising, you need that support rather than just winging it on your own. You need to have that backup support, or even if you don't need it, you just got to know it's there.
That's the thing, isn't it? That it's there and it's just a phone call or just an email, and clubs just assume that, dare I say it, the peak bodies sit in their ivory towers and but Tamitha and her team, if we're talking specifically tennis in Victoria, just constantly working for making it easier for sports club volunteers. And so by reaching out, that's effectively what you're doing, not reinventing the wheel, making it easier for yourselves and leveraging off the work that they've done previously.
I think that goes, without doubt, Steve, without doubt.
And Gary's a big fan of Tamitha as well, as every time we raise tennis in these discussions, all roads seem to lead to Tamitha and her team doing a great job of empowering and supporting the clubs. So just a couple of final questions. Karina asks, would you consider using Tennis Vic new system, Club Spark or Clubs Park, whichever way that is, to register participants?
I'll throw that one over to Denis.
Well, we've only just come across it in the last couple of weeks or so we're not all that familiar with it. But I think it's just an online registering system for all aspects of club activity. So I haven't really looked into it a lot, Steve, but I think it's got potential. You can register for coaching and all the classes and the cardio tennis classes and all that sort of stuff we run. So I haven't looked at it a lot yet. So I'm ignorant. Yeah,
that's fair enough, but it's just another example of how peak bodies are creating ways to help clubs, isn't it? And technology's one, programs is another, and that sort of thing. It's a bit of a musical interlude. Well, as I do with every session, I might just bring up the Doing Sport Differently framework and just look at the things that that you've done that kind of reinforce what that framework is all about, and the wonderful research of La Trobe University and VicHeath. And principle number one is where you started: engage with the market, i.e. in this case it's the kids. We probably shouldn't call them a market. Engage with the kids, think about it from their perspective, cater for the different skills, create that pathway. So some are going into coaching, some are going into competition if they want to, some are just staying there. And best practice project management, ensuring sustainability. So now with a little bit of funding up front, a little bit of a lot of trust with the kids, it's now become a really sustainable program. It's no surprise because of the way that you went about it and the way that you engaged the kids and created a really fun skills base. Learning the games are about learning the skills of the game, not necessarily playing the game initially. And I think there's 100 lessons in the discussion that you shared with us today. So I thank you so much for your time and sharing your stories.
That's all right, Steve. It's our pleasure. I mean, I would commend this program to any club. I mean, for the young children, and again, because of the social thing about it, it's just so great when you see how they get involved and all that sort of stuff. So anyone out there who wants to do it, just go for it. Just give it everything you've got.
Feel free to contact.
Yeah, and feel free to contact us anytime if they want to. We're happy to speak to people about it.
At Point Lonsdale Tennis Club for that. And I'll thank Karina and Gary, who are regular viewers of the Wednesdays Doing Sport Differently live stream, always contributing and sharing their experiences. And that's just part of the wonderful thing that is the sports community's community. So, guys, thank you so much. Keep us in the loop of things that happen over the next summer period when you introduce new programs or take it to the next level. And we'd love to share your story.
No worries at all, Steve. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, so that's another wonderful episode of Doing Sport Differently. I'm Steve Pallas, and thank you, everybody. Thank you all for being part of our sports community.